Copper is trading like a strategic metal these days in short supply, but the world's biggest copper producer is now facing a question of trust. An internal audit suggests Codelco may have overstated December production by roughly 20,000 tons after including material that allegedly did not meet the company's own standards for finished copper output. Codelco says the audit is still underway and that it would be premature to draw conclusions before the review is complete. Still, the controversy lands at a sensitive moment. Prices are elevated, investors are piling into mining, and Chile is under pressure to prove it can still deliver the copper the energy transition needs. Chilean mining analyst Juan Carlos Guajardo joins us to explain whether this is a technical accounting issue or a deeper warning about governance, credibility, and supply risk at Codelco. Juan, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
So look, copper prices have been trading at historically high levels, right? And investors are treating supply as one of the big macro stories of 2026. And I'm wondering, against this backdrop, how serious is this Codelco production discrepancy for you?
Well, as you mentioned, this is still an ongoing investigation. However, the evidence points towards a serious issue if it is confirmed. The December 2025 production number was too high, in our opinion, completely not aligned with the history of the company. It was the highest in more than 10 years. Actually, the credibility of this number was questioned even before the leaking of this audit. So if the final audit confirmed that this is a number that does not reflect the real situation of the company, it will be very, very serious, and it will compromise the credibility of Codelco.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, look, related to that, you've said the issue is not whether the copper physically existed, but whether it qualified as a finished production. For a technical or non-technical investor, why does that distinction matter so much?
Yeah, it matters because mining companies must follow strict regulations to report their production. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to have credibility in the reporting. So there are strict standards to report. And in this specific case, what it seems to be involved in the controversy is that some intermediate material was credited as final material and included in the production of 2025, although this material would be available in the future, in the months or years. So this situation clearly affects the credibility of and the rules that mining companies follow to register the production.
But look, if 20,000 tons, does not change the global copper balance, why could it still damage confidence in Codelco and perhaps Chile's wider mining reputation?
Because these 20,000 tons made the difference between accomplish the goal or not.
Yep.
Without these 20,000 tons, Codelco would have not complied with the annual target. So that's why it's so important. And some people said that this is part of the bonus payment mechanisms. So this could be serious because it would involve some money, not only the reputation of the number.
Codelco's December number looked exceptionally strong, but January output then fell sharply. Does that pattern raise questions about operational recovery, or is it too early to draw that conclusion?
Well, we understand that Codelco has been facing some difficulties in operations. So the drop in the first part of this year would be explained because of these difficulties. But it's also possible that we are seeing some kind of, let's say, adjustment after an artificial effort made at the end of 2025. So that's part of what the investigation should light in the next weeks.
Now, just shifting focus a little bit, your reports have pointed to copper's rally being driven by supply anxiety, AI infrastructure, defense spending, and energy transition demand. Is the market now more sensitive to governance failures at major producers than it was, let's say, in the past?
I think the market is quite sensitive on any news involving production right now. I think it's very hard to find moments along the history of the copper market where production is in the center of investor attention. So I think at this time, following a number of incidents in Congo, Indonesia, and also in Chile, we are seeing that the investors are putting attention on what happened to supply. And certainly this controversy in Codelco it could be part of that concerns, and therefore could be part of the potential impact in the copper market.
Yeah. Look, I'm looking at reports on copper here, right? Some of them describing copper surge about $14,000 a ton earlier this year. It's the biggest one-day jump since 2008. Is copper now trading on genuine supply tightness, Juan? Or has it become, an overheated macro trade? What's your take?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, Dylan, because the copper market is explained by multiple factors, and it's difficult to separate fundamentals from financial factors, because investors, financial players, are basically following the fundamental story. So what we are seeing, in our opinion, is quite a strong mid and long-term fundamental outlook. And therefore, investors are probably joining this brighter perspective now in order to take advantage of the potential upside. Perhaps the fundamental market is not so strong at this specific moment, but the mid and long term is quite strong, and that's probably attracting a lot of financial players to the market.
Yeah, I want to end off talking about that, right? Just looking at some of the numbers over the past few hours, copper has pulled back below roughly, $3,500 a ton. And this is weaker Chinese data and tighter financial conditions hit the market. But investors still see a structural supply deficit story underneath all of this, right? I mean, where do you think copper prices are heading to from here?
Well, I think the first important reference, at least in our case, is to look at the historical copper price, but in real terms, which is different of nominal terms that we are discussing now. We still think the real all-time high has not been reached. So, in our opinion, the big test the first big test to the market is to go up to, let's say, 10% more from now. If the copper price breaks this historical high in real terms, well, that would probably break a new territory, and the copper price would go up to much higher levels. But the first hurdle is the all-time high in real terms.
Yeah. What number are you looking at?
More or less 10% more than what is right now.
Well, interesting to follow that story. Look, great insights. Juan Carlos, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.